Background. Now COVID-19 occurs in many countries around the world. The existence of COVID-19 in all media is important things to improve considering that the transmission of COVID-19 continues to develop. However, that news or report causes anxiety in readers and listeners. Religious therapy contains guidance on how to be free from anxiety, tension, and depression in life. For example, the Balinese Hindu community, who has received religious advisory from the government and related institution. Based on this problem, we are interested in conducting research that analyzes the correlation, potential, and effectiveness of implementing religious advisory in reducing the anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community towards the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Theories. First, press and news. The press is the media used for journalistic activities and includes everything that is obtained through news searches so that it can be seen by many people. Second, anxiety. Symptoms of anxiety can be described as worry, a bad feeling, fear one's own thoughts, and irritability. Various individuals who experience anxiety will be able to relieve their anxiety by doing things that calm the heart, such as religious advisory. Religious advisory. This religious therapy in the form religious ritual activities such as praying and saying praises to the God. Spiritual appeal can be a request or invitation regarding something related to mental, spiritual, or characteristic. Research questions. First, how is the correlation between the implementation of spiritual exhortation and the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community regarding the risk of contracting COVID-19? Second, how is the potential for implementing spiritual advice in reducing the anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community about the risk of contracting COVID-19? Third, how effective is the implementation of spiritual advice in reducing the anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community about the risk of contracting COVID-19? Time and place of research. The research took place from June to July 2020, then continued in September to October 2020. The research was conducted at the researcher's house, which is located in Denpasar, Bali. The type of data that researchers use is primary data in the form of quantitative data. Data collection techniques in this research were using online questionnaires and literature study. The questionnaires contain two parts, namely implementation of spiritual appeal and the level of community anxiety. The variables in this research. Independent variable is the implementation of spiritual appeal, while the dependent variable is the level anxiety of the Balinese Hindu communities. In analyzing the data, the researchers used a correlative analysis technique. The research population and sample is 200 Hindus in Bali. Research instrument. The instruments of the research are the spiritual appeal questionnaire and the HARS, or Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. The questionnaire for the implementation of spiritual exhortation contains questions about respondent knowledge, experience, and their opinion about the implementation of spiritual appeal. Research stage. Making a research questionnaire. The research questionnaire was created online using Google Form. In the questionnaire, there are several questions for the respondent, such as email address, full name, gender, age, occupation, and education level. Design experiment. This type of research uses descriptive analytic research which aim to describe systematically and factually the facts and the correlation between the variables. The study used the one group pretest post-test design. In displaying the collected data, researchers use tables, diagrams, and descriptions. Applied test. Measuring the level of anxiety, respondents are asked to respond to statement in accordance with sentence 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. After the data was collected, the researchers conducted to analyze, examine the correlation between two variables with the chi-square test. In the study, both variables have an ordinal scale, so to determine the correlation coefficient using the Cardinal-Towns test. Detailed statistic. Research statistic. Researchers use the SPSS or statistical package for the social science program to carry out the chi-square test, which aim to determine the relationship between of the implementation of this spiritual exhortation and the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community. The study used primary data in the form of quantitative data and ordinal data.
Table 2 and 3. Table 2 is a case processing summary where there is not a single case missing because all data has been input. Based on the table 3, there are two researches variables arranged in relation to rows and columns. The dependent variable observed in this study was the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community. The level of anxiety based on HARS is categorized into no anxiety, mild anxiety, moderate anxiety, severe anxiety, and very heavy anxiety. While the implementation of research variable is divided into respondents who don't implement and who implement the spiritual exhortation. The level of anxiety of respondents who did not implement spiritual exhortation had a higher average than respondents who implement. The chi-square test can be carried out in the SPSS program. The data statistic that researchers use is an ordinary scale because the measurement scale in the anxiety questionnaire is a multi-level scale, such as known, light, moderate, heavy, and very heavy. Table 4. Based on the table above, asymptotic significance to cite from percent chi-square is 0.016, which is less than 0.05. This means that there is a correlation between one variable and another. This is also in the line with the likelihood ratio test, which has a value of 0.034, which is less than 0.05. Table 5. Based on symmetric measure table, we can see that the value of approximate significance between candles tau B and C test has an equal value of 0.166. Table 6 and 7. Table 6 and 7 are the result of anxiety level data from the HARS test, which was filled in by 175 respondents before carrying out the spiritual exhortation and after implementing the spiritual exhortation. Table 8. Table 8 shows the percentage decrease in 5 anxiety level. As we can see, there were 12 people whose anxiety level changed to no anxiety from other anxiety level before carrying out religious advisory. In addition, there were 9 people whose anxiety level decreased to mild anxiety. 2 people experienced moderate anxiety, then 0 change to severe anxiety level, and 1% for a very severe anxiety level. Analysis on research result. Based on the table 4, the asymptotic significance suicide value of percent chi-square means that there is a correlation between the implementation of the spiritual appeal then the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community. Based on the data obtained, it can be said that implementing spiritual advice can reduce the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community. This is evidenced by the result by the change in the level of public anxiety from before and after implementing spiritual appeal. The changes were 1% who experienced severe anxiety just before carrying out the spiritual exhortation did not become anxious once again when he had done his spiritual exhortation. This indicates that performing spiritual exhortation has the effect of reducing anxiety. The number of respondents with moderate anxiety changed from 9 to 7 people. The number of respondents with mild anxiety changed from 16 to 7 people. A person's anxiety is influenced by many factors such as work, gender, age, level of education, and one of them is consultation. Spiritual advice does have an effect on the level of anxiety of the Hindu community, but it could be that the effect given is insignificant because there are many other factors that affect it more significantly than spiritual appeal. Conclusion. The conclusion in this research is 1. There is a correlation between the implementation of the spiritual appeal and the level of anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community about the risk of contracting COVID-19. The second one, the implementation of spiritual appeal has the potential to reduce the anxiety of Balinese Hindu community about the risk of contracting COVID-19. The third one is the implementation of spiritual appeal is not very effective in reducing the anxiety of the Balinese Hindu community about the risk of contracting COVID-19. Future work. Researchers plan to develop this research is to find a specific form of religious therapy recommended by religion when an epidemic strikes. In the future, researchers will conduct further research on the factors that cause the increase and decrease in the level of anxiety in the community during the pandemic. The psychology of society is very important. Therefore, research on the level of public anxiety is needed in this condition. With this, the researchers hope that this research can be useful for the government, society, and other researchers.